Hello everyone. In today's video, I'll be providing a basic overview of our DinoCapture 2.0 software. DinoCapture is included with all Dino-Lite USB digital microscopes and Dino-Eye eyepiece cameras, and you can always download the latest version of the software by visiting dinolite.us/downloads. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over our general interface here. There are a couple features that I might come back to and go into further detail, but I'm just going to quickly explain what all these icons are on the screen. So first thing, we have our menu buttons. So those are these buttons here at the top. We have folder, which allows you to create new folders in our gallery and manage those folders. You have the file menu. This allows you to open up pictures. There's a few different ways to do this. I can click one of the pictures in the gallery and hit open or copy, all the basic operations that you'd expect. And then I have settings, which has a lot of different settings in here that I'll go over in detail in a little bit. Then I have the help menu. This has access to the user guide, the FAQ, and about DinoCapture 2.0. You can click on this to see which version of the software you're running. As of this video, I am running version 1.5.37.A. Software is updated very frequently, so be sure to check the website to always make sure that your software is up to date. Below the menu buttons, we have our folder selection drop-down menu, and to the right of that I have our new folder button. So if I click this button here, I can type in a folder name. I can also type in a note if I'd like to document what is going to be inside of this folder, and then I can click create. Once I've done that, I can select my folders in this drop-down menu. So you can see here we have the default and we have the test folder that I just created. Below that, we have our image gallery. So this holds both photos and videos on separate tabs. These icons below that mirror the same functions that you have in this Files menu button. So this is allow you to open up different pictures, copy them, save as, which will get shown in a moment, email them, print them, send to a slideshow, or delete them. You can also delete an image by clicking it and then hitting the delete key on your keyboard, or right-clicking on it and hitting delete. To the right of the menu buttons, we have the image and camera selection thumbnails. So if I open up an image that I've taken, I will see that image here. And I can click on it to swap between the live view and the pre-captured image. I can also click and drag to move that image around on the screen. If I plug in a second camera, you will see another number appear here at the top, and if I click on that number, it will open up the camera. This section here is our main program window, and inside of this window we can move around any of our live preview windows or any images that we open up. If I click this button here, this will close the window. If I click the button on one of the live windows, I can open up my live image again by clicking on its preview thumbnail up here. Each of these camera preview windows has several icons inside the window itself. The first one will close the window. If I close that window, I can open it back up by moving up here to the thumbnail preview icon and clicking that. I'll bring it back. The one next to that will maximize or minimize the window. If I click on the settings hammer over here and move down to default full screen mode and change this to full screen no tools, then when I hit the maximize button, it will fill the entire screen. And to get out of that, I can simply hit escape. Moving on. This is the settings wrench inside of the preview window. If I click this, I have all of my standard camera adjustment settings. So brightness, contrast, hue, gamma, everything that you'd expect. You can also change the camera to negative mode or monochrome, or you can mix those two together. You can also flip the image either vertically or horizontal. If you'd like for all of these settings to stay the same every single time you start this camera, you can check this checkbox here. Next to the setting wrench, you have the LED control button. If I click this button, it will toggle the LEDs either on or off. Or if you have an advanced model with FLC, then I can click this button and one of these options here will bring up the FLC controls. So with FLC enabled, I can control each individual quadrant of the LEDs instead of just all on or all off. And I can also change the LED brightness. Next to that, we have the auto exposure settings. If I click that, it will initially have the auto exposure on, and I can adjust the luma value. This is a quick just to make everything either lighter or brighter. If I'd like to set an actual shutter speed, I can change the auto exposure to off and set my shutter speed however I'd like. Just leave that on default for now. If you are hovering over the slider here, you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse to adjust that more finely as well. Moving on, we have the white balance selector. So I'm going to go ahead and move the watch out of there for now. With this, what I can do is toggle between default white balance and auto white balance, or the last one, we'll change it to set. I can put a white background in the frame, hit set, and it will set my white balance accordingly. To the left of the camera preview windows, we have several other icons. First one that looks like a camera allows you to take a snapshot. The second icon here is the video recording button. You will have to click this twice, once to start the recording, and once it's reached the length of your choosing, you click it again to stop the recording. The last icon we have here is the time-lapse video icon. If I click this button, then it brings up all the different settings for recording a time-lapse. I can set the duration, the interval, if I would like it to repeat, as well as the playback frames per second. I can also tell it to turn off the LED when not taking pictures. This is to prolong the LED life, and I can also apply these settings to all cameras if I have multiple cameras assigned. Once I have the settings to my liking, for instance, I will just do a duration 10 with an interval of 1 second, hit start, let it do its thing. It's going to capture 10 frames, I believe, and then end, and then it will show up over here in my videos. There we have it. Depending on your model, you may also have two additional buttons here underneath the time-lapse button. The first is EDR. What this will do is similar to what you might have heard referred to as HDR, high dynamic range. It'll take multiple images at different exposure values and combine them together into an image with balanced exposure. So let's just go ahead and click that. You'll see it takes a highly exposed image, a lower exposed image, and then here in a second, and we'll stitch it together. There we go, and there's the result. The next icon is the EDOF button. This stands for Extended Depth of Field, and it helps to deal with depth of field problems. So you can see here we have the top part of this object is in focus, and the bottom part is out of focus. What I'll do is I can hover over this icon to preview exactly what it's going to capture. So if I hover over it again, you can see that it doesn't quite reach this back area here. So what I'll do is hover over that icon, and I'll use my scroll wheel, and you'll see another dot appear above that icon, and that means it will go further. I can keep extending this until I am getting the entire object in focus all the way up to here, and then the last step will go to manual, to where I can set different points for it to go to manually. But for this one, we're just going to keep it in auto. I'm going to keep it on the 3 dots. I'm going to let the preview finish. Give it a click. And it takes all of those different focal planes, and it's going to combine them together and give me a composite image with everything in focus. And here's the finished result. So you can see now we have both here and here in focus. I can middle click on an EF image to see the different layers that it's taken. I can move between the different layers after I've middle clicked by using the scroll wheel on my mouse. One interesting note about this feature is I can do this on a live image as well. I can middle click to get it to attempt to autofocus to this back area, for instance. And once I'm in that refocus mode, I can use the scroll wheel on my mouse to digitally move the lens up and down. At the top of the camera preview window, we have the header information. This will display information such as what resolution it is currently set to, and if I click this drop-down menu, I can change the resolution. I can also choose which folder I would like it to save to. And if your camera supports it, this will also display the AMR magnification value. So for instance, this model here, if I change the magnification, you will see this magnification change in this window. And if you have any calibrations applied, you will also see that information displayed here. There is one more button that you may or may not see to the left of the white balance, and it will look like an M. If you do not see it, look on your microscope, and there is a little metal sensor that is called the microtouch sensor. If I tap that, you will see that now we have another icon that shows up that is labeled microtouch. Now, this microtouch sensor, every single time I tap it, it will take another picture, and you can also set that in the settings here to do different things such as start and stop recording video. You can set it to a double touch trigger, or you can disable it completely. But this icon here lets you disable it temporarily. So if I click that button, then tap that sensor, you will see that I'm no longer getting an image every single time I tap that sensor. At the very bottom of the camera preview window, there is an area that says enter annotation here. I can type in an annotation such as test, and then every time I take a picture, that annotation will be saved to that image. What's neat about the annotations that I enter into this area is that I can filter all of the images in my gallery by searching for this annotation. So for instance, I can type in test into the box here and hit enter. And now I will only see the images that have that test annotation on them. Directly below the camera preview thumbnails, we have the main toolbar. Now this toolbar has a lot of different tools on it, and I won't be able to go into each one in detail on this video at least, but I will try to briefly give an explanation of each one. To start things off, we have the text box. This tool lets me draw out a text box and type in some text. It's worth noting that these text annotations here are not searchable like the ones that you enter into this bottom annotation area. After the text box tool, we have the line drawing tool. This lets me draw a line. Then we have the arrow annotation tool, which lets me draw an arrow. Then we have the freehand drawing tool, which lets me draw out a shape of my choosing. Then we have the rectangle tool, which lets me draw a rectangle, and the oval tool, which lets me draw an oval. If I right-click on an empty area of the preview window, I can choose clear and clear drawings just to clear drawings, or if I had drawings and annotations and measurements, I can choose to clear those, or I can just simply clear everything off the screen by hitting all. Next up, we have our measurement tools. These are definitely going to need their own video, but very quickly, this first tool is the line measurement tool. To do a line measurement, I will click the first location in my measurement and then click my second location, and that will give me the distance between those 2 points. After that, I have the continuous line measurement tool. This lets me choose multiple points at different angles, and when I reach the end, I can hit the escape key, and then that will give me the length of the entire line that I selected. Next, we have the point to line tool, With this tool, I can drag out a line, hold Shift to constrain it, and then off of that line, I can measure multiple points, like so. Once I've reached the end of my measurement and I don't want to do another point, I can just hit Escape to cancel that measurement. Next, we have the polygon measuring tool. This tool is very similar to the continuous line tool, except the measurement is closed. This is a really good tool for measuring odd shapes. Next, we have the first of 3 different circle measuring tools. The first one will measure the radius of the circle by clicking on a center point and dragging until it reaches the outer edge of the circle. You'll see here you're getting the circumference, the area, and the radius all in one measurement. The next circle measuring tool is this one right here, which is the diameter circle. To use this one, I click one point on the far edge of the circle and then move until it encompasses the entire circle. And again, I'm getting the circumference, area, and radius all in one measurement. The most popular of our circle measuring tools is the 3-point circle. Using this tool, I can select 3 different points along the edge of the circle, and it will automatically generate the circle for me. Similar to the 3-point circle, the next tool is the 3 points arc. Using this tool, I can select 3 different points along an arc, and it will calculate the arc for me. Next, we have the 3 points angle. To use this tool, I first start by clicking where the vertex of the angle will be and draw out the first arm. Once I click again, I can drag out the second arm, and there's my angle. The 4 points angle tool is an even more accurate way to do angles. So with this tool, I can select 2 points along one arm, and then select 2 points along the next arm, and it will automatically calculate the angle for me. Next, we have the center distance tool. To use this tool, I have 2 different circle measurements. Just draw out 2 random ones right now. I can click anywhere on this circle and then anywhere on this circle, and then I will get the distance between the center points of each of those circles. And that works with all of our different circle measuring tools. Moving on, if I click this double down arrow, I have a few more measurement related tools. The first is the grid lines tool. If I click this tool, you'll see that it generates a grid line across my screen. If I right click on this, I can come over here to grid setting and change the grid color, the grid type, or the grid pitch. So for instance, if I would like this to be a 2mm pitch, I simply type in 2.0. And then now I have much larger grid lines. Next, we have the circle grid, which works very similar. I can still set the pitch on this one as well. So again, I will do 2mm. There you have it. This is great for measuring concentricity. Next up, we have 2 crosshair generators. The first one is a standard crosshair, and I can click and drag on each line to reposition them independently, like so. The second crosshair generator is a scale crosshair. This one I cannot arrange each crosshair independently, but I can click on the center of the crosshair and drag both lines at the same time. Moving along, we have 2 different types of fixed measurements that you can display on the screen. First is a fixed length. I click on the tool, it will present me with a box here where I can type in the value that I'm looking for. So for instance, 4, and right now it's set to millimeters. Hit enter, and I will have the fixed length measurement on the screen. Same goes for the angle measurement. I simply click the tool, type in the value that I'm looking for, and there you have it. The lasso tool will measure length and area along a center point, like so. The color average tool allows me to get an RGB color average for the selected area. The edge tracing tool will attempt to automatically trace an edge provided that there's enough contrast to do so. The next two icons are for adjusting your line format and for changing the font on your annotations. If you click on the line format button, three additional icons will appear. The first icon is to change the line color. The second icon will change the line from a standard line to a dotted or dashed line. The third icon sets the line width. You can change it from 1 pixel in width up to 7. Now, if I do a measurement, I'll see that it has a dotted line of the 7-point width that I set. Now, if I change this again, so for instance, set it to a non-dotted line, you'll see that this does not change. I have to select that line first and then come back here to change it. The font button deals with annotations both that are automatically created on measurements and ones that you create using the text annotation tool. So I'll click on the font button and then I get a choice of different fonts. I can choose to make them bold, italic, etc. and also choose the size of the font. So for instance, I will create another text box here and you'll see that it now has the new font that I chose. Now you'll see here that this font is different than this font. The same as with the measurements. I have to select the font, the text box that I'd like to change, then click the font box, change it, and then it will change accordingly. You can also change the font of an annotation by right-clicking on it and selecting Font. Next on the toolbar is the Measurement Properties button. If I click this button, it brings up the Measurement Properties window, which lists each individual measurement that's been performed on the active image or live preview window. These are separated by the type of measurement. Also in this window, you can choose if you'd like to display the name of the measurements. You can see that toggling on and off right here, or the length if you just wanted to show the name. You can choose how many decimal places you'd like the measurement to calculate to. And on circle measurements, you can choose if you would like it to display the circumference and area and radius, or just one or a combination of just a couple of them. You can also change the background opacity of the annotations. You can see here this is becoming more solid or less solid. And then finally, you can export all of these measurements to Excel. After the Measurement Properties button, we have this magnifier icon. If I click this icon, it will bring up a window that digitally magnifies the area that my cursor is hovering over. I can also click and drag and move this window around. I can click these plus and minus buttons here to digitally increase or decrease the magnification. If I have the magnifier on and I grab a measurement tool, it will follow my cursor. And when I'm in this mode, I can change the magnification by using the scroll wheel on my mouse. It's also worth noting that you can move the measurement tool 1 pixel at a time using the arrow keys on your keyboard. This next button toggles the snap mode on and off. What I mean by that is if I enable this snap mode and then select a measurement tool, you'll see this blue line that appears next to my cursor. What it's doing here is actively searching for an edge, and here it's found one pretty good. I can just click, and even though I'm not directly on the edge, it will snap to the closest edge. So there we go. It's a really handy tool for getting accurate measurements very quickly. Next on the toolbar, we have this input magnification window. Now, if you're using a microscope that has AMR, this window will automatically populate as you move the focus of the microscope. It will adjust itself. If you're using a model that does not have AMR, you will have to type in a value into that box to get accurate measurements. So take this model, for instance. What I'll do is look at the microscope at the marks on this side of the dial. Those hash marks go in increments of 5. So if I count right now, I am at 20, 25, 30, 35. So what I will do is type in 35 into this box, and now I can perform a measurement. The next button allows me to change the units of measurement that I'm using. It defaults to millimeters, but you can set this to inches, mils, millimeters, or microns. The final icon on the toolbar is the calibration button. If I click this button, I can access any saved calibrations or create a new one. To create a new one, I will click New Calibration Profile, give it a name, and this will bring up the calibration wizard. From here, I will put either the calibration standard that is included with most Dino-Lites that can perform measurements, or a ruler or a gauge block. Just put any of those things underneath the microscope. As long as it's a known distance, you can calibrate to it. Once that's done, I will hit F8 or click this button to freeze the magnification. Then I'll enter the magnification rate. So I will, again, on this model, I will count the hash marks. And if I do that, we are around 200 times. If you're using a model with AMR, this box will be filled in for you. Once that's done, I'll hit enter. And that will bring up these two dots with the line on the screen. The best way to do this is I will click on the magnifier icon, click the first dot, and then I'll use my arrow keys to go to the first leading edge, 1 pixel at a time, and hit enter. Then I will grab the next line, and again move it 1 pixel at a time to the next leading edge, and hit enter. Then I will let it know what that known distance is. So this is 1 millimeter. So I'll type in 1, make sure it's set to millimeter, and hit enter. And it will tell me that this calibration is completed. If you have one of our newer calibration standards with these QR codes on it, the calibration is even easier. To do an auto calibration, you'll follow many of the same steps. You'll go up here to the calibration button, click New Calibration Profile. I'm going to go ahead and call this one Auto. All right, and then what I will do is move around the target until I have the appropriate sized QR codes for the magnification that I'm working in. So for instance, this one is too big, these are too small, these are the ones that I want to use. So once it says auto calibration target detected, I will hit freeze again. I'll type in the magnification rate, which I've already done. It's set at 200, hit enter. It will say auto calibration on this magnification is completed. I will hit finish, and then my calibration is done. That takes care of the toolbar. One other thing I'd like to go over is exporting images. To get an image outside of DinoCapture, what you'll want to do is move over here to the icon, select it, right-click on the image, select Save As, and then you'll be prompted with this box here. This lets you decide if you would like to imprint the header information, which is this information up here, the drawings, text, and measurements, so that would be any measurements or any of these tools up here that you have used on the image, or the annotation, which is this bottom box down here. You can set the image size and the DPI, and if it's an EDOF image, you can choose to save the original images of the EDR or an EDOF image individually. Once I have these settings how I'd like, I click Continue, choose the location I'd like to save the image, choose the type of file I would like to save it to, either a GIF, a BMP, all of these options that you see here. For this option, I'm just going to go PNG, type in test, hit save, and then my image will be there waiting for me. Well, I think that is it for this video. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to our channel. We post new videos very frequently, and there will hopefully be more tips and tricks videos coming out. You can also visit DinoLite.us to find out more information about Dino-Lite digital microscopes. Thank you and have a wonderful day.